Welcome to the modern classroom, where in 97% of our schools there's at least one computer, and 93% of our schools that computer has working internet. In recent years, there has been much controversy as to whether implementing more technology in American schools would be more beneficial or harmful to today's students. However, I think that implementing them in a responsible way is what's going to be helping these students succeed in the future. Students today grow up in a completely different world than 10, 20, 30 years ago. They're going to be growing up with technology, and teachers, I believe, should be showing them how to use these tools responsibly. We are in an ever-changing world. When we're talking about technology, the internet came in, when we're talking about technology, the internet came in about 20 years ago and completely changed about how we view technology. Ever since the age of the internet, all different types of technology started implementing new practices and inventing new products. In just 20 years, we went from no internet and using landlines to so much internet everywhere. Internet is everywhere, and we are using smartphones, wireless computers, smartwatches, and different companies like Amazon are implementing smart devices to put in your homes to go towards a more smart home society. Due to this technology-driven future, it is a wise choice to responsibly use technology in the classroom for a couple of reasons. As educators, we need to set a good example of using technology. This is because, as I mentioned, students are going to be growing up in a technology-driven world, and if we don't show them the right ways to use technology, they might have it more as a distraction, where I believe that if we use it in a responsible way, we are able to set them up for a very successful future. Upon graduation, students are going to be exposed to a whole new world of technology, and it is our job to help them be successful and use these tools rightfully. Growing up in my own life, technology was a sore subject in my middle school and high school. During my elementary school, nobody I knew had a smartphone. Nobody I knew even had a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone until I was about 17, and that was already pretty old for kids of my age. In my middle school and high school classes, this is when students started bringing their cellular devices to school, and our teachers, frankly, did not know how to handle that. So, due to that, it became a sore subject, and teachers started taking away the devices, even if they saw them in the outline of their backpacks or their pockets, and there were strict rules about them. While cellular devices can be harmful, and I agree that they should not be up during class unless they are used for educational purposes, devices like that could be also really useful in the classroom. Technology opens up many doors with many different educational pursuits. In our modern world, there are many platforms for education that students can use to their benefit. For instance, students in a secondary class can work together to form a presentation with things like PowerPoint, which is a very simple example. They can also use Canva or Prezi, which are other interactive presentation platforms. Another example is a math games website, and with a wide variety of math tools available. I would use these with probably K through 5th graders, but they could also be used in all different grades. This is a good option for the younger kids, and this can be done in classrooms or at home if the parent is not always sure how to implement technology to help them, or if their child is just simply struggling. Although technology, in my perspective and many perspectives of other educators, not everybody sees it this way. They see it in a more harmful light than a good light. It can be a really useful tool, as I mentioned, but it can cause some harm, and I do agree with that. This is a point that most people who are against technology in the classroom, this is the one they usually talk about, is that how it will not do any good for our students. An article I read recently spoke about researchers from Princeton University who made the argument that it has been proven that students who handwrite their notes do far better in their education than students that type them out on a computer. They were mostly looking at older high school and college age students, but it could be applied to all different ages. I am full support of this argument, as it is true. Even in my own life, I have gone to class and I ended up on Pinterest halfway through, which is not something I like to admit, but it happens, and you get distracted, and these things are there and put in place to serve as a distraction. Or even if I did take notes on my computer and use them wisely, I didn't really fully absorb what my professor or my teacher was talking about. It is extremely important for educators to know when technology will be helpful, but it's also really important to know when it's gone too far or it is not being used wisely. For technology to be useful in the classroom, it is important to know the students who will be using it. This goes back to anything you will learn if you're in the education field. You need to know your students, and this will make a world of difference for how they learn, how you teach, etc. If a teacher knows how a student is struggling, they need to pay attention when the devices are out. The teacher might have the student do work with paper and pencil if they recently had a struggle with technology to prove that they can handle the responsibility. As an educator, it's also important to know what types of online programs would work best for your students. It would not be wise to just hand a third grader a computer and instruct them to take notes. This probably wouldn't even be good for a high school student. For things like this, you could use those math websites I talked about, those presentation sites, and other things along the line. For high school students, they could also use the computers for research in class rather than going down to the library, or if that school does not have a really good library, they can use other online platforms. High school is also a really good time for teachers to teach their students how to do effective online research and cite their sources properly, rather than go to college. I know a lot of students who are my peers, and they have came to college, and they have had a hard time learning how to cite sources correctly and use credible online databases. Whether or not you're in support, whether or not if you are in support of increasing technology in our classroom, it's becoming inevitable. Especially in our world, it's becoming inevitable. Technology is everywhere, and I think how it affects us is how you approach it. We are in an ever-changing world, changing with technology and other recent events. And I hold the belief that it is an educator's job to help students become successful individuals in the world today, as well as the academic world. That they need the ability to use technology, and that is a big part of the goal of making them successful. Technology can be really useful in the classroom, but this takes discipline and the knowledge of how to use it wisely. Thank you.